This is the DRF Players Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast, show number 254, the Tuesday, July 25th, 2017 edition. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, back with you, calling in from the Brooklyn bunker today. I will get to spend some whole weeks up at Saratoga, but we haven't quite gotten to that part of the summer yet. So back here in Brooklyn with Muggs, the handicapping Labrador, alongside, to my left, calling in from the planet Texas, where he almost didn't get back to from his weekend sojourn to Del Mar, from what I understand, Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
Yeah, very challenging return to go along with a challenging week of racing. So it's
You're getting beat up already?
Oh man, yeah. Like I usually put my keys in my carry-on because I don't know why. It's just probably a stupid thing to do, but I had to check my bag, and then my bag, the zipper was open. There's no keys. I got home at like 11 after getting to the airport at 7 yesterday morning. That standby life backfires when there's a flight cancellation because 150 people then take all the empty seats on the other planes that I was going to get on. And it was an adventure, but we're back in the saddle.
Back and better than ever. It sounds like maybe not so much. What happened racing-wise over the weekend? I know that you have another one to add to your own personal chamber of horrors. In fact, Bob Baffert emailed me before and said, Pete, if there's anything you can do to get JK not singled to one of my great horses on the end for a four-figure score, see what you can do about that. Explain to people what he's talking about.
Yeah, no, I mean it's I'm becoming I don't know if the right word, you'll let me know, like an anomaly. Like I can make it rain at Del Mar, I can make it rain at Santa Anita, I can get 1-2 Pacific Wind beat, I can get 1-9 American Pharoah beat, I can get 1-9 Arrogate beat. I mean I'm here to ruin things that aren't supposed to happen. So really kind of a bizarre situation this weekend with strategically getting alive to Pacific Wind for a really nice score and her getting beat, and then at 1-2, and then obviously strategically getting alive to Arrogate for not but for a meaningful enough score and finding a way for him to get beat. So
I think the best way to describe, we'll take the positive view. You were able to take, you say 1-9. The horse was I think the horse was 1-20.
Yeah.
And you were able to, on your initial investment, get whatever it was, back 3 or 4-1. How did you explain to people how you got in that position, which is no doubt, if it were a computer simulation, you could run it 100 times. You're doing great, doing what you did despite the unluck. Explain the mechanism by which you were alive for that to Aaron.
Yeah, it's we talked about it before. It's weighted or Dutch or weighted pick threes, where I think I was like 2x4 maybe. So based on using the double probables, you just kind of get an idea of which combinations are going to be bet the most, and then you bet the most on the ones that are going to have the lowest payouts. And so if it comes chalk Arrogate, you have that one a significant more amount of times than if it's the kind of long shot Arrogate. And so
sure, you might have a $117 combination versus a $6 combination on longer shots. But to get that kind of return, obviously betting it the right way is part of the edge you're getting to turn 1-20 into 3-1. But there's got to be, did you have some favorites out completely? I mean, you must have done something interesting handicapping wise in those first two legs to get there, right?
No, not really.
Who did you have to fade in each of the first two legs, if you can recall?
Oh, I can tell you that, but it's going to take me about 30 to 45 seconds of
I'll ask
acting.
you another question while you look that up. We've kind of buried the lead here, so let's go to the big story. We all talked about it on Friday like it was a foregone conclusion. We even got to the point where we were playing the over-under game on what his buyer speed figure was going to be. Let's start with that, and then we'll get back to the wagering specifics. What happened to the big horse out there, JK?
I don't know. There's a lot of shock, I know, looking around at the people. I was actually standing with our friend Sean Turner, the West Coast Sean Turner of tournament fame, Elbow Racing. He owned Global Hunter was one of his best horses. Anyways, he thought it was the biggest upset he's ever seen in racing. Went back to the veranda patio with a bunch of other horse players, and they all agreed that it was probably the biggest upset they'd ever seen, just in terms of the expectation that he was going to run so well, the kind of an anointment that he was probably one of the best horses of this generation, if not the best, and the fact that it wasn't like, oh, a pace scenario got him, oh, trouble got him, oh, there's a reason why he was beat. And yes, he probably should have overcome that problem, but he never did. It wasn't none of those situations. He literally did not pick up his feet. And when you're talking to people that don't know a lot about racing, one of the things I kept hearing was, they were giving examples of, there was a great tutorial about show jumping. Bridge jumping and the show pool. And you could illustrate it by how much money was bet into it. And I heard a lot of people say, this horse is not going to not run in the top three unless the jockey falls off. And Mike might as well have jumped off at the first time they passed around because he wasn't really needed the rest of the way. So it was shocking. It was really shocking. It's puzzling. There's no excuse. It'd be a lot easier if he were to get into traffic trouble or if he was, shut off at the start and almost lost the jock. And, if he had the trip that the two had, it'd be understandable. Right. But I really don't know what to say. I know a lot of people are going to say that he doesn't like Del Mar.
Yeah, let's pause on that for a second, because my sneaking suspicion about that. First of all, I've seen some weird stuff on Twitter about that he had lost at Del Mar before, which is just simply not accurate. But it is true, I suppose, that compared to some of the Tour de Force performances he put up as time went on, he was barely beating. Another way of looking at it, I guess, barely beating allowance horses. When I say barely, he wasn't destroying allowance horses when he won out there last summer in that race they rode for him as the prep before sending him to the Travers. But my suspicion is that's the human brain wants to have explanations for things. And sometimes when there aren't explanations for things, we reach for narratives and put them together. And that's kind of where I am with that one. Like, this was just too bad. The other race wasn't that bad, all things considered, and this race was way too bad to be believed. So I don't know I don't think that that's it, is I guess what I'm trying to say. What about you?
Yeah, I can kind of understand that maybe he doesn't like it down there, but they're going to need to figure that out considering his next two races are going to probably be there. So that's definitely something they're going to need to sort through. And I would assume that maybe he'll get acclimated to being down there for a while. He's such a good horse, and maybe it's just going to take some adjusting for him to realize that that's where he's going to be running for the next couple of starts of his career. But
if there are other starts to his career, now I know Bob Baffert has been very adamant is too strong, but very confidently talking about we'll see the real horse in the Pacific Classic. Some great reporting on DRF.com from the West Coast team, Jay Privman, and Steve Anderson, I think, also had a little piece about this, writing about, he will be, it's sounding like he's going to be back, but how often do we hear that kind of talk and then something surfaces, especially after such an inexplicable performance? How confident are you we're ever going to see him on the racetrack again?
I don't know. It felt weird. Like Bob was like, a lot of times I think people in his situation would be like, oh, well, it was so bad. We'll probably get him back to the barn, do some blood work, look him over with a fine tooth comb, see if there's any issues. But he never really did that. He was just like, the horse is fine and he'll run the Pacific Classic. So, I thought that was interesting. For sure.
Interesting/weird.
Interesting/weird is probably appropriate. But But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's just a baffling performance. The only thing I'll say, and it's the Breeders' Cup Classic is a little bit of an outlier there. I think he wants to be put into the race a little bit more. Not that was the difference. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying from a strategic standpoint, I think he wants to be put in the race a little bit more. He had a really honest pace to close into after the debacle in Dubai, and he was just he just. I can't really explain the Breeders' Cup Classic because he did kind of come from off of it there, but I just think that he's better off if he's kind of put into the race a little bit more. But
yeah, but that doesn't explain this even by a long shot.
No, it doesn't at all. He just was never. He was just never really in the bridle. I will say at the 3/8 pole, he made that move down on the inside, and I turned to whoever I can't remember who I was standing to, and I said he might win by the length of the stretch. I was a little bit concerned earlier in the race, not overly concerned. Then he made that move at the 3/8, and then literally 6 jumps later, I said he's off the board. It was really bizarre, and that's when they kind of turned for home, and he kind of fanned outside. You could see that Mike was really getting busy. He wasn't responding, and then Mike was just going to take care of him.
It's tough. I wish we could come on here, as we often can, and talk about subpar performances and give people reasons. But the fact of the matter is that in the craziness that is horse racing, this is something that happens once in a blue moon. I mean, I do remember one other 1-20 shot losing before your time in the game, JK, a horse named Gentleman, I believe, in a big stake at Santa Anita, went down. I think was off the board at 1-20. It doesn't happen too often, but it's always a possibility, and it's the old cliche about why they run the races. I would resist too much trying to explain something that I think is inexplicable, and I just hope that we get to see the real Arrogate again, and this just becomes something that becomes one of those inexplicable performances that happen once in a while in racing. Let's say that for a second, let's just pause and say that doesn't happen. If that's it for Arrogate, does what happened to you on Saturday night in any way diminish this horse's legacy?
I mean, unfortunately, it will a little bit. I mean, I think that people will pause slightly when they start throwing around the best horse in the last 30, 40 years, best horse of our lifetime. I mean, his performances were great. He's done some really good things, but it's hard to see to that be the last image of him. So
I think in time you're not going to feel that way as much. That's my guess.
Okay.
I mean, I'll just theorize to you. It's very easy to get swept up in like winning streaks and things like that, but I mean, every Secretariat, right? I guess we if nothing else, did that TV ad that we talked about. Gosh, did we ever give our winner of that contest his or her prize? By the way, I just remembered that we had the prize about the Secretariat commercial.
I thought we did.
Okay, we did take care of that. Good. I if we didn't, let us know out there. We had a lot of right answers. It was filmed at Santa Anita. The TV commercial, of the effects that it had, I feel like that kind of cements the idea that Secretariat, greatest horse of the time since he competed, right? I mean, still a Q rating high enough in 2017 to warrant his own commercial. Do his losses, his multiple losses, in any way diminish how great he was?
No, but that's because he won the Triple Crown. He ran the fastest Derby time ever. He won the Belmont by 30-something lengths. I think there's a lot of reasons why. Fair. He was great. I mean,
his highs were higher. There's no doubt.
Right. I mean, Arrogate won. He broke the track record at the Travers. He did not participate in the Triple Crown, which is America's, darling. He did beat California Chrome in the Breeders' Cup Classic. He won the Pegasus, the first running of the Pegasus when California Chrome didn't show up. And then he won the Dubai World Cup. And who did he really beat except for Gunrunner? Right now, and I don't mean that like
except for Gunrunner. I mean, Gunrunner is a legit Grade 1 horse, and it was in its own way. I mean, look, I'm not saying Garrick is better than Secretariat. I'm saying that when you look at these achievements, the winning those 3 races outside of the Triple Crown, and the style and the way that he did them, and you want to throw in a 4th and throw in the Travers, a race Paul Matisse calls possibly the fastest in Saratoga history, and you got the Breeders' Cup against a major opponent, one of the best horses of the last 5 years, clearly in California Chrome, and then the trip. I just don't think you can make a who did he beat type case about Dubai, because there was a legitimate Grade 1 horse winning in the trip, and the way that he did it.
I agree with what you're saying. I'm more or less playing devil's advocate about the comparison between him and Secretariat. Why I think Secretariat has been able to withstand those losses, and if Arrogate is going to go away from us and we're not going to see him run again, I do think that this loss will at least tarnish a bit of the legacy that he was in the process of building prior to the loss happening.
It's just so hard.
Just a little. I mean, he'll still go. I mean, if people ask me who's the best horse you've ever seen live, I would still probably say, it's either Rachel Alexander or Arrogate. If someone asked me that tomorrow, even despite what he did. But if they're going to make a TV commercial about Arrogate in 30 years, I would probably say no.
No, you're right about that. And I didn't mean to make that 1-to-1 comparison. I guess I was just talking about the idea of I just think people get too hung up on undefeated, and it makes me crazy because I think people then manage horses too conservatively. And I think that losses are okay, and that it just doesn't bother me the way that it bothers many.
Speaking of losses being okay, I mean, I don't want to hijack.
Oh, we're ready to turn.
Hosting duties, but how about the magnificent Lady Eli?
Yes, Lady Eli is a good example of a horse whose defeats don't make me think too much less of her. That was a great race. Let's talk about that. What did you think of her? What did you think of her in general, and address the situation in Deep Stretch?
Well, I think it's a little bit funny because her and Antonio kind of I think they probably proved one of the old adages at the racetrack. You don't bet a horse that breaks through the gate. And they both broke through the gate. I'm sure people were frantically running to the windows to cancel their tickets, and then they both probably ran the 2 best races. I think Antonio was at least second best without the trouble in the stretch. Lady Eli is something special. I thought she would be, Nick kind of alluded to it. I thought she might have been ridden a little bit more forwardly in that race, but nonetheless, it was magnificent. And a good part, kudos to Del Mar for playing the Saratoga Stakes races in the paddock, on the screen in the paddock.
Oh, cool. I didn't know they did that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Now they do it in the infield as well. So it typically would work out. It worked out well where regardless what was happening, if there was horses on the track or whatever, they would play the stakes at Saratoga on the big screen in the paddock and also in the infield. So I wasn't on that side very often, so I didn't see it as much. But so that was cool. I watched her from the Del Mar paddock. So it was definitely a great race and great to see her back. And I was stuck in the airport yesterday watching some of the replays of the Naira show with Andy and Gabby and Paul and Tom Amos. And Tom Amos said something that I wanted to grab PPs to look at, but he suggested that Lady Eli could potentially win Horse of the Year this year, and I was a little bit taken back when I heard that. But what is that? 2 grade 1s for her this year?
That sounds right. I don't have a PP in front of me, but I mean, I guess he's projecting a campaign where she wins out, and maybe that's it for Arrogate. I mean, there's a path. There's a path to that happening. I don't think it's the most likely scenario, but it's. I mean, really, everything in the world gets shaken up with what we saw this weekend from Arrogate. So it's not the craziest thing I've ever heard. Talk about the stretch run there. What did you think of the steward's inquiry in the stretch? of the race?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if you try to go into tight holes like that happens to you sometimes, and you have to. I think that they're not going to run in complete straight lines down the stretch, and I think if you put horses into those positions like Antonov was, sometimes that can happen. So, I think it's the same thing that happened with Abel Tasman. I think that when you try to go into those little spots, you get tightened up a little bit. It's race riding. There's a thin line between race riding and interference, and I think both were fine with staying as they were.
I would have been kind of horrified if either had gone the other way, to be honest with you. But I will say this: that the biggest difference is I should have watched the head-on one more time before saying this, but it sounds like you've watched it a few times. Didn't Lady Eli really started the situation on Saturday, whereas it was a clearer case of race riding? I think Mike Smith even said in an interview afterwards he was basically channeling his inner Angel in the CCA Oaks on Sunday, which we'll get to in a minute. But if you did, I mean, what were they technically looking? Were they looking at Lady Eli, or were they looking at the other horse on Saturday?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Is obviously, since I watched it from the paddock, they cut away to want to go to Del Mar, so I didn't get to see the. Oh,
you haven't seen
breakdown.
The replay at all?
Well, I've seen it, and it was Lady Eli who I thought did it. I think if it would have been the 4 more than it would have been Lady Eli, there might have been more consideration. But it didn't feel like they were going to take Chad down for interference against Chad. I know that's not how the stewards make decisions, but they're all humans, so sometimes those things pop into your head. I think involuntarily, and it just didn't feel like that was ever going to be something that was going to happen, where they were going to take down Lady Eli to put up the 4, because the 2 was never getting there anyways.
I will say this. I said I would have been really disappointed, and I would have been, but I would have been way less surprised if something had happened had it not been a grade 1. I do think, again, regardless of what the stewards will tell you their mission and operating principles are, I think they're going to act a little bit differently. Again, I wouldn't have wanted to see it as a DQ anywhere, but I mean, do you think that's right, that you would have been way less surprised? I think I would have been shocked in a grade 1, and I would have been like puzzled in a allowance race. Does that sound like your reckoning of it?
Yeah, I think that it's when you want. I think ultimately in our grade 1 races, because of the value they carry in breeding, the value they carry in Eclipse Awards, the value they carry in Legacy, I think that we want the best horse to win. And if the interference prevents the best horse from winning, then I'm okay with there being a change. But in my opinion, Lady Eli was best. It was an insignificant piece of interference that wasn't going to change the order of finish, in my opinion. And so I prefer that it stay untouched.
That's interesting. I definitely think it changed the order of finish.
Did it change the winner? Did it change the winner?
Not definitely at all. But I mean, Antonov with a clean run, the way we know she can finish, it wouldn't surprise me. But I was just saying, I think Antonov definitely would have been second. But but you've clarified. You were really talking about win, which is far more debatable.
Yes.
It's I mean, and to run that well, you never know. Breaking through the gate. I mean, a lot of the times I think it's like getting punched in the face and then being asked to compete. It is a reason to cancel a ticket for sure, in my opinion. And kudos to the Lady Eli never really even got away. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I kind of can't wait to bet Antonov next time. But I don't know. I say that, but then is that going to be what everybody thinks? And is she just going to be a fraction of a price wherever she shows up next? Who do you want out of the race?
I mean, I want Antonov too. The problem is that she was shorter than I thought she was going to be in this race with Dickinson and Lady Eli. So wherever she shows up next, she'll only be shorter. I would imagine they're going to split these 2 up. I haven't heard, but one will go one will go Beverly D, and one will go somewhere else. Are they going to both go Beverly D, or neither?
Is Beverly D? Is that a little quick back for the usual Chad program?
Is it? When is the Beverly? I thought it's in.
It's usually I think it's August 12th this year.
Oh, really? Oh, that's too. Yeah, you're right. It's too quick.
I think it's different. Some years it falls on Alabama, and some years it's the week before. So we'll see. Follow hopefully you're a DRF Plus subscriber. You can read all about it. Dave Grenning, I'm sure, will be all about this story if he hasn't been already as to where these brown horses are pointing. It's going to be interesting to see. Let's talk about Abel Tasman for a minute. What did you think of Mike Smith's ride, JK?
I thought he tightened her up. I think you go down there on my boy Mike, he'll tighten you up. So no, I see nothing wrong with what he did. I definitely don't think that he changed the outcome. Maybe he helped himself, but I don't think that without that move, it wasn't like he wasn't going to win anyways. I think the most brilliant move, and I heard Andy Serling talking about it, and I think he's absolutely right, is not enough jockeys take the aggressive chance that he took, because if he would have been wrong, he would have been absolutely roasted. If he would have been wrong about the early move on the backside with Abel Tasman when they slowed it down and he would have gotten beat, he would have been roasted. Twitter would have had a fit. Everyone would have suddenly been a jockey. And so the fact that it worked out for him, I really commend him for that, and that's pretty awesome.
I loved it too. That type of aggressiveness. Apparently the filly was just feeling great underneath him. They did start to back things down in that second quarter, and it's not like he was quarter horsing her to the lead. They were moving in partnership to the lead in a way where, I'll admit at first there's a little bit of, you turn your head sideways and you say, what's going on here? I'd say by the time I even saw the half mile time go up, I was thinking, okay, this makes sense with her finish. As easily as she did that with the finish she's shown, I didn't expect. It wasn't like somebody making that kind of move where you think, oh, well, they better put the field to bed now because there's not going to be any finish. It seemed likely to me she was still going to be able to finish. What did you think, though, before you saw the time, as that move was going on? What did you say aloud to whomever was standing next to you?
Unfortunately, I didn't see it live. It was Sunday. I was, which I'm sure we'll chat about. I was.
Now you missed Thursday. You missed Thursday to go to the beach. What did you do Sunday? You went to the San Diego Zoo or something?
No. I was at the track. I was filming the show, the TVG show, Win Place show.
Oh, we'll talk about that in a minute. So you did not see it live.
No, I was getting run around. Well, someone told me that Mike schooled Jose, and I said, oh, I forgot to watch it. And then I finally watched it. Actually, yesterday morning was the first time I actually watched it when I was losing at the airport. And when I saw it, I had kind of already heard. So I can't give you a gut reaction because I was kind of privy to the information.
Right. Well, if you knew she won from there, you'd watch it differently than right. If you're just watching it in real time. But just guess what you put yourself in the shoes. I mean, would you have? I love Mike Smith, obviously the best big money rider, but I mean, gosh, you'd have to have some confidence in him to be like, yes, that was definitely the right thing to do while watching in real time. It's just so unusual. You see that so infrequently.
He's got a lot of confidence in that horse because this is the second dicey move he's taken on her, right? Last time at Belmont, he dropped her down to the rail, which was well publicized, the place you didn't want to be, and made that move on the turn on the rail. I mean, this is the second time he's made an aggressive move with her that's panned out. It says a lot about what he feels about her and what he feels underneath her. She might be something special.
She's terrific and very, very good stuff from Elate. It's good to see her fulfilling some of that promise she showed in that amazing debut win. It's been a little bit rocky since then, but quite possible something's been figured out there and that she'll be a competitor along the way. Hard to pick anybody. Hard to say anybody's a more likely winner than Abel Tasman in the rematch of those horses. But maybe Elate somebody who's going to continue to develop, especially considering the hands she's in. What do you think about her?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, she's one I think we've all been chasing for a while. We've all kind of wanted to get Elate involved, and I didn't think that this was going to be the scenario that was going to work out best for her. I just thought adding ground, Abel Tasman was going to be tough there, and I would imagine going a mile and a quarter is going to be the same situation. Obviously, there'll need to be a little bit more pace involved, but typically when they stretch out like that, there's something that wants to go a little bit early. So she's going to go back to California. And hopefully they'll show back up for the Alabama. And I did read Lady Eli. 2 more races in her career are projected: the Flower Bowl, Grade 1 Flower Bowl at Belmont, and then of course the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf at Del Mar.
Very cool. Be very fun to watch and see what she can do. She's been thrilling us for a long time. I mean, I still remember that debut at Saratoga and all the attendant buzz, and great to see her going strong a matter of years later. And hopefully we'll get to see some more good stuff from her along the way. As for Abel Tasman, one more thought on her. If she gets another race with pace, as much as she's appeared to develop and the special qualities she's shown, what if she ever gets a setup? What's she going to do? Run off the screen?
Yeah, well, she got one in the Breeders' Cup. I mean, I'm sorry, in the Oaks, which. But
I think she's better now. I mean, it seems she's better now than then.
Yeah, and the great part about it is what we talked about when the transfer happened from Simon to Bob. We were wondering how Bob and her would kind of mesh with their styles. Bob's obviously trains horses to be a little bit more forward, to be involved in the race. She has become one that wants to kind of be come from a little bit out of it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But 4 races for Bob Baffert, and she's got a second 3 wins, and 3 of them happen to be Grade 1s.
Mike Watchmaker pointed out on DRF.com that earlier in their careers, Unique Bella certainly appeared to be have the measure of Abel Tasman. Do we think there's a chance Unique Bella might come back and really make her work for this role she currently has at the top of the division?
Well, the interesting part about the Unique Bella scenario is, I mean, she has a tappet out of a horse that Unrivaled Bell, who excelled at a mile and an eighth, but her running style was always kind of like in question of how far she would want to go. I'm not sure that if Unique Bella didn't kind of go on with it, if Abel Tasman still wouldn't be a more logical play at a mile and a quarter. However, if we can find a way to get Unique Bella back in action, I think it would be fun towards the end of the year. The workouts that I'm seeing haven't seen Unique Bella since March. She worked twice in March, and that's it. So I don't even think she's back on the track at all. So maybe she's galloping, maybe not. We'll have to see.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting story to continue to follow. We had Watch on along with Marshall Graham at the Saratoga Pavilion tent. I'm doing these shows every Saturday from 11 to 11:30. Had a lot of podcast listeners come by and say hi. A lot of people saying hi throughout the day. It's great to get that engagement with the listeners. Please say hi if you see us out at the track for either of these summer meets, and we'd love for you to come see us live. For those wondering about the Pavilion tent, it is down by the far turn on the backyard side of the grandstand. So it's where they have like the Taste of New York and those events. And if you ask folks for the Pavilion tent, anyone who works there should be able to direct you. Again, 11 to 11:35, different guests every week. I'm guessing with as busy as you were this weekend, JK, you didn't have a chance to check out Watch and Marshall on Saturday?
I was laying around with it playing, and then I had to kind of get moving. But I watched little pieces of it, but I didn't get to sit down and watch the whole thing. But I did check out some pieces of it. But no, I wanted to second your thing about people saying hello. I had a few people out at Del Mar say hi too. Somebody snuck up behind me one time and said "confidential Kinchin," and confused me. But no, it's a lot of fun to see people come say hello. So.
It didn't feel right at the top. A few months ago, it didn't feel right to bring back Confidential Charlie or Confidential Kinchin, for that matter, without our podcast host emeritus Mike Hogan involved. But that, remembering how amusing that was, it does make me tempted. Maybe I'll get special dispensation or permission to go back there at some point. And half the fun of Confidential Charlie was always just the people who complained about him. So that we may have to go back and knock on that door again. Now, one of the reasons you were so busy was this TV show that you mentioned, JK. A little bit later, we're actually going to close out the hour talking to Penelope Miller from America's Best Racing about this new app, Stay Lucky. But another thing I want to start talking about, and we'll do it more as the show goes on, is this new show that you're involved in called Win Place Show. I don't know. I'm sure you're not meant to talk about everything that happened over the weekend, but what can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I'm not 100% positive what I can or can't say, but I'll just kind of dance around just the premise and the idea that now that I know it a little bit better. Essentially, there is 3 races that are assigned to the players, and what it is there's 2 teams, a red team and a blue team. There's 2 team captains, myself and I think there's 6 other guys or 5 other guys or whatever. And so we get assigned two contestants that they don't know each other. They don't have not terrible. They don't have long resumes in racing. They might know a little bit about it, and maybe they know that the good jockeys are the place to, little things, very, very minuscule things. And some don't know anything. And essentially they get those 3 races. They have $300 to bet. They can bet the $300 however they want. However, they can only bet win, place, or show, and they have to bet at least $2 on every race. So if they wanted to go all in one race, they'd have to bet $296 on that race, $2 in the next 2 races. They have to bet the rest of them. The interesting strategy part of it is that after the first race is run, they actually tell each other, and they have a kind of a presentation of how the teams did in the first race. So you do have an idea of whether you've both missed, both hit, both one's on the lead, one's not. You have an idea of where you're at. You have an idea of maybe how the person bet the first time or the team bet the first time. And then the last 2 races, there's no one knows. You don't know what they did. You don't know if they hit, if they didn't hit. They kind of keep the teams separate, so they don't really see each other a lot. The teams, when they do cross paths, don't really share that information with one another, and can sometimes be I think a little game theory there too. On
I could tell you right now, we could do a whole show on strategy for this. It's so interesting, but we're not going to do that. Not least of which, regardless of whether or not you're allowed to, I don't want to, maybe somebody's listening in. You could give away some strategy that other people could use against you. Once you've recorded all of the shows, we should talk about the right approach. It'd be like a really interesting game theory, horse racing contest type strategy discussion, but we can't have it yet. But I do want you to tell us, when will the show be airing? How can folks find it?
So they filmed Saturday, Sunday. They're going to film this Saturday, Sunday. And then there's a little bit of a break. And then they come back for the semifinals and the finals. I think we're going to air in September is what I've heard. But it's a real show, real production crews. I'm talking about 4 or 5 cameras, 2 or 3 executive producers, microphone guys, makeup. I mean, there's nothing B team about this production.
Are you suggesting that the DRF Players podcast isn't a real show? Was that sort of implied in what you were saying there?
No, I'm just saying it's not like a little, it's not just some guy with one camera running around, and it's they've spent some money on the production of this thing, and it's going to be a good visual, some good visuals, and like I said, the strategy will be interesting. It's a little bit different, right? Because the biggest part about it is these people don't, and I don't mean it in a mean way, these people don't really know what they're doing. So there is a sense of watching them learn, and then there's a sense of watching us try to coach them along. The other thing I'll before I forget is that they're very strict about what it is we can say to them and the time in which we can talk. We have 10 minutes to talk about each race that they're going to be doing, and they actually put a timer on it, and they let us speak freely. I was kind of pressing them to bet this horse in the first, and the producer was like, you got slow down. You got to, you can't, like, they were like not really. So I don't get to hold their hand through it. I can just kind of guide them, and they kind of run from there. So it makes it interesting from a, kind of watching a new player make some bets. I would imagine that a lot of the bets you see as a horse player, if you're a horse player, you're watching, you're going to be like, I don't know if that was the smartest thing. But I think it's interesting still to kind of watch where their minds are.
No, it sounds like a ton of fun. And my other big takeaway, though, is I pity the guy or girl who had to deal with your makeup and wardrobe situation. As vain as you are and as seriously as you take that stuff, that must have been half the shooting time on Sunday, just getting you ready for your on-camera appearance.
They told me to bring 3 shirts. I was so confident in 2 that I said I'm only bringing 2. So I brought 2 shirts, and then the makeup. The makeup lady said that I was going to be easy. I guess it's the skin color. It makes it a little bit easier than
natural
some
good
of the others.
Looks too.
There
Come
you
on.
go. Yeah. So. But it's weird. I was kind of running around the track in between my times I was, filming, and I had to like go up to people, and the microphone's tucked away, so no one really knew. I mean, some of my friends knew, but I had to keep throwing out the disclaimer, like, "Hey, I'm filming today. I have on makeup. I didn't want you to think that like I was just like running around the track with a little powder on." So
that's hysterical. You have a reputation to uphold. That's for sure. All right, let's loop back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show before we got to talking about the actual racing. How did you, again, I want to figure out who it was you had to oppose to get in that 3-1 situation on our old friend Arrogate.
It's actually pretty kind of beautiful. In the 7th race, there was it was a maiden race, a 2-year-old maiden race, where Doug O'Neill had a horse, Graciata, which I believe was a half to somebody. I'm not going to remember now. Oh, the filly Big World that won on Oaks Day. I believe she was a half to that horse. I think they paid like $400,000 for her. And then Simon Callahan had a horse for the Redhams. Those 2 horses were 9-5 and 2-1. I used those 2 horses in race 7 to start the pick 3. And then in race 8, if you didn't already know this, then you clearly don't follow TQ or Chrissy on Twitter. But the girl downstairs got the job done as the 7-2 favorite on the turf for Ron Ellis and Corey Nakatani. So Chrissy was fired up in the winner's circle. For people that don't know, Chrissy, it's longtime girlfriend of Tom Quigley. She had a horse named after her from the Pegrams called the Girl Downstairs, because at Del Mar, she is a teller right downstairs from the veranda. And I think that there was a line one time, and one of the guys ran down there. She got her ticket punched. They won a lot of money. They named a horse the Girl Downstairs. Horse has been claimed from Baffert, from different people. And so when she runs, Christy's always really excited about that. So in that race, I think I used 4 horses, 7-2, 3-1, maybe 8-1 and 11-1, I think were the ones I used. I don't remember exactly, but I used 4 horses in that spot. And then I was alive to Arrogate for, I think it was like 3.5-1.
Pretty clever way to go about it. We have a quick question, and we should do this in a minute because I do want to get to this interview we have with Penelope Miller. But we had a question from Keith suggesting that some of the exotics pays were very light considering Arrogate being out. Did you notice any discrepancies with any of the exotic pools in that race?
I did. I thought I think the try came back like $108 for 50 cents.
So that doesn't sound like enough. I mean, I guess the only thing I could think of is the shortness of the field and just enough people taking some sort of contrarian stance. But I mean, that doesn't sound like enough, does it?
No, it doesn't. It was only, it's 50 cents. It seems kind of, I mean, there's 5 horses in the race, right? So that had to be part of the problem. I mean, the dollar exact that paid 98.
Yeah, that's
So
not really enough either.
yeah.
I just can't explain it. I mean, the conspiracy theorists out there will say, "Oh, somebody knew something," but I don't. I just can't accept that. It doesn't
Well,
sound that
the pick
feels like
three
tinfoil
paid
hat stuff.
the pick three paid $109 with favorite 7-1. So, I mean, one of the favorites was 7-2, but still, I think that the thing that's lost here is the fact that there was a 5-horse field,
Right.
and the second choice in that 5-horse field won. I think if Donworth or Cat Burglar wins, it's a completely different scenario.
All right, let's get to this interview. And one note before we roll the tape here, I put Penelope on the spot about when EquestriCon is during this interview, and neither of us could remember correctly. It's actually August 13th to 15th. So those interested, you can Google EquestriCon, go to their website, get involved. Okay, let's play this interview. And now I would like to welcome to the DRF podcast, Penelope Miller. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderfully, thank you, and thank you so much for having me on.
It is our custom on the show, whenever we have a new guest on, for that person to talk a little bit about how they got involved in horse racing and tell the audience a little bit about themselves. Now, a lot of our listeners are going to know you already, so it's a bit redundant, but let's keep up that tradition. How'd you get involved in this crazy game?
Well, I got involved in utero. My parents are both involved in the sport, and I grew up on a horse farm in Ocala, Florida. And I knew from the time I was a little girl that, that is exactly what I wanted to be involved in. The racing industry is my favorite. In fact, I tried on my dad's advice once to do any other job. So I did everything from waitressing to being a production assistant in Los Angeles and beyond. And it just, nothing else is as fun as horse racing. So I committed.
That's fabulous. And what path did you take to your current role, where you are the senior manager of digital media for America's Best Racing?
A very literally organic one. I started by night watching broodmares in Ocala, Florida. Then did the same in Lexington, Kentucky at Ashford. Then actually went to Australia to work foaling crew there at Coolmore, Australia. Parlayed that into a job at Tampa Bay Downs, where I was the horseman's liaison, as well as working in their media department, digital media, worked on their social media there. And then from there, I came to America's Best Racing.
Fabulous. And for those who don't know about the role and the sort of mission statement of ABR, how would you describe it?
Well, we are a new fan development organization. And back in 2011, the McKinsey report commissioned by the Jockey Club found that horse racing was losing more fans than it was gaining. So ABR was formed to grow fans for the sport of racing. And we do that through everything from digital media, a very heavy focus on social media, reaching out to influencers who can tell their peers who follow them on social media about the sport of racing, and really just trying to introduce to a new audience how wonderful the sport of racing is through all sorts of points of contact, including, the horses, the gambling, fashion, the scene, a little bit of everything that makes the day at the racetrack so much fun.
Coming off of opening weekend at Saratoga, of course, you see all those elements at play. And I tell you, walking around there Friday and Saturday, and especially out in the backyard and in the bar areas, host of young people, it seems like the mission is going okay, and that you guys have helped to stem that tide a little bit. What do you guys have going on? I know there's this one initiative in particular that just recently launched that we're going to be talking about. But generally speaking, what are some of the things going on this summer that you guys are involved in to help continue to stem that tide and grow the sport?
Absolutely. Well, we recently, actually, for Del Mar's opening weekend, had a social media influencer out with whom we did a video. It's up on our site and social right now. His name is Matthew Espinoza. He's 19 years old, and he comes with 18 million social media followers. So trying to meet people, new people on the platforms where they're most comfortable. We're doing a lot of video. We have an incredible video team, and, digital video is what's really reaching a lot of new fans. So we're certainly doubling down on that. We also have our own podcast. We have really a ton of fun web content, everything from list-based articles to gambling tips. And of course, our new app, which is called Stay Lucky.
Well, that's what I want to definitely spend the most time here talking about today. It sounds like a really cool way. We got a lot of contest-type players who are regular listeners to the show, a lot of people who are involved in other forms of fantasy gaming, and Stay Lucky brings all those elements together. Let's just start off with a basic description of what it is.
Absolutely. Well, Stay Lucky was modeled after Major League Baseball's Beat the Streak. So the goal of Stay Lucky is to pick in graded stakes consecutive winners. And by doing so, you build a streak, and then we'll prize you at different levels depending on how many wins you get. So all the levels are based off of winning streaks by famous racehorses. And we have, so far, since we launched just before the Kentucky Derby, we've given away over 70 prizes. So it is worth it to play, and the prizes are very cool.
Very cool. How can folks get involved?
Very easily. It's available on both the Apple Store as well as the Google Play Store. So no matter what kind of mobile device you have, Stay Lucky is available for you. And it's very easy. It's very intuitive. And we also put out a Stay Lucky guide every week that has our pros giving their expert picks. And I have to say, Mike Curry, who does most of them, is a whiz at this.
Excellent. What are some of the prizes specifically that are involved at the different levels?
Well, the very top tier is quite a tasty prize. It is $1 million.
That gets the attention.
Still to 20. It absolutely does. I could use that in my bank account personally, but I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, you get a 20-race streak. You beat Zenyatta, and you get $1 million. Just underneath that, you can get a share in Little Red Feather Racing. You get to own a part of a horse, which is very cool. Or you can get, and this might intrigue your audience handicappers as well, you can get a berth to the NHC finals, which, as you know, is not something you can buy into. It is something you have to earn.
Oh, that's a cool cross promotion for sure, and another way that folks can get prize money that's going to be potentially up there, and that's what we're all looking for. This audience in particular, I think those monetary prizes and the chance to see your name on a leaderboard. These are all things that are going to resonate with our audience. So I'm very happy to have you come on here and talk about it. What kind of this is in its infancy, right? You launched. Tell us about when you launched, and if you have any success stories so far to come out of it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we launched, as I mentioned, just right before the Kentucky Derby, so it truly is in its infancy. It's about 2 months old, and we've had people get all the way up to 12 in a streak, which is pretty incredible. So they've been given the chance to win everything from a month's subscription to Stats Race Lens, a year's subscription to, or a year's membership to the NHC, Christine Amore hats, Bill's khakis outfits, Breeders' Cup gift bags. I mean, there have been some really cool prizes that we've given away. So all of which I'm very sad I can't win.
This is the tough thing for us about being involved in this stuff. I talk about DRF tournaments all the time, but I can't just go on there and play. I'm sure it's a similar phenomenon for you. While I have
it is. I feel like a kid outside of a candy store, just pressing my nose against the glass,
weeping at the window and pointing, that kind of situation. While I have you today, I want to talk a little bit more. Everybody has so many different ideas about this idea of marketing horse racing to a younger audience. You've spent so much time doing this and are in the digital space. I'd just love to get some of your general thoughts about what other things that racing in general and racing fans can do to help market the sport. What is the key to reaching out to this demographic that you guys have been successfully engaging?
I mean, I think not only talking about racing in a welcoming way on social media, of course, is a great thing, but just bring a friend to the racetrack who's never been. I mean, there's something about the experience of physically being at the track, holding, a ticket in your hand and, there's something magical that for $2 on a show bet, you feel like you own the horse that's running for that race. It's really cool.
The thrill of being on a winner is sometimes worth more than money, especially in a place like Del Mar or Saratoga, where there's just so much going on and there's just a buzz by walking in the place. And that's something we've discussed before. When you could just send people to the track and you're going to probably have a good time, but there's also a chance you're going to end up sort of getting a little bit lost. It's a lot to unpack, a lot to take in. But when you can go to the track with a friend, with somebody with experience who knows the cool place to stand to watch the race and where the good bars are and how to most efficiently get a bet on, and the cool places to hang out, however you want to describe it, that's the kind of thing I think could really make a difference. So this idea that, I mean, other sports don't necessarily have to do this in the same way, but I think as racing fans, there's something to be said for trying to embrace this role of being an ambassador. Do you think most racing fans see that and are willing to participate in it?
I mean, I think they do, and they are. Racing fans are some of the most passionate people I have ever had the pleasure of coming into contact with. And, they're so passionate because they care about this sport. There's something truly magical about not just the sport itself, but the community it builds around you. I mean, I've talked to people on the subway, which I never do, just because they've been wearing a Saratoga hat or a Breeders' Cup, T-shirt or something, and kind of, you find a kindred spirit. So I think racing fans can be the strongest and proudest ambassadors that there are out there. And if you can't make it to the track, maybe you don't live next to one, or, you're in a state where there isn't a ton of racing, you can have people over and have them come watch one of the Breeders' Cup Challenge Series races or something like that. I mean, show people why and how you love the sport. And I think that really helps make racing exciting and special to people who are new to it.
What other events do we have coming up this summer that you think racing fans are going to be able to continue this bond that we have and a way to participate in this positive energy you're talking about?
Well, just this weekend we have one of the most, or I should say, a pair of some of the most enticing events for new or casual fans, which of course would be the Haskell Invitational at Monmouth Park and the Jim Dandy of Saratoga. And I think these two are so exciting because, you see a lot of the horses who are involved in the Triple Crown coming back. These names are still familiar to people. And plus, those two events are just fun. I'm going to the Haskell, and it is one of my favorite events of the year. I mean, Monmouth is just a good time. And of course, it's the 50th anniversary this year as well. So it's going to be extra fun.
Quite a lineup looking like they're going to be participating. And I agree, for those that aren't that familiar with Monmouth, very much worth a day out. It's set up a little bit differently than most American tracks. It reminds me in a lot of ways of a European race course with the different little areas to hang out, what I would sort of describe as a European style paddock. I feel like whatever experiences of the races you're looking for, you can find at a place like Monmouth. During this time when we talk so much about Saratoga, and I personally, my loyalty to Saratoga, maybe I've taken it too far. I don't get to Monmouth come August very much, but it is something for folks not to miss out on, and a very easy get to from a lot of metropolitan areas. Are you involved in EquestriaCon at all?
I am. In fact, I am going to be moderating the panel for the social media panel, and that was going to be my next thing I was going to talk about. I am so excited for EquestriaCon. I think it's such a smart, fun, timely initiative. I mean, like I said, horse racing fans are passionate. They love talking about the sport. They love meeting other people in the sport. So what better platform to do that than at a convention in Saratoga? As you said, it is the mecca of horse racing. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to get to travel to a lot of racetracks, but there is something about this spa that just feels like you're walking on hallowed ground. So EquestriaCon's sure to be just a ton of fun.
One of the reasons why in-person contests are so popular, I mean, there are so many reasons, but one of them definitely is for horse players, it takes on that convention feel and a chance to just meet all these people, disparate places in the country who share this bond of horse racing. I expect there to be a whole lot of that at EquestriaCon. I'm involved as well, and we want folks to buy your tickets today. Don't delay. Come hang out with us. We're going to have a great time up there, and it's only now a couple of weeks away. Do you have the official dates on the tip of your tongue by chance?
I believe it is, I want to say right after Whitney weekend. So that would be August 5th through 7th, but I could be wrong.
Whitney's
I would
the
double
5th,
check.
so maybe it starts the 6th on
yes,
that
I
Sunday.
think that's
but
correct.
Folks can Google and get all the details on that. For more details about Stay Lucky, what's the best place to find that information?
Well, you can go to americasbestracing.net/staylucky, or just, like I said, head over to the App Store or the Google Play Store, and you can download it there very easily.
Excellent. I'm actually eligible to participate, so that's a nice plus for me. Curious to hear how folks make out with that, and I just want to thank you for making the time to come on the show today and tell us about what's going on, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time up in Saratoga.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's been really fun, and I can't wait to see you at Saratoga at EquestriaCon.
Sounds good. All right, folks, that's all the time we have on the show today. I, of course, want to thank Penelope for taking the time out to join us. Thank Jonathan Kinchin, as always. Most of all, thank all of you for listening. We'll be back on Friday with a special guest to go over the weekend's racing at Del Mar and Saratoga. Saratoga, of course, going to be taking up the most of the focus of my week when they get back on Wednesday. I'm sure that's true for most of you as well. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your photos.